Chapter 21, The Snake. So Phong raised his head to the waterfall about 5 or 6 meters high, thinking that with such force, amphibians could not stay in the pond. Good, we can fetch water. He gently patted the girl's head. He pulled the wooden stick from the pond, scanning the surroundings for a place to build shelter. Finally, drinking water. Van Han held the iron pot full of water and almost raised it to her lips. Stop, do not drink. So Phong hurried to stop her. Why? Van Han looked confused, hugging the pot with a dazed face. Water must be boiled before drinking. So Phong sighed, took the pot, gazed at the clear water, and explained. Wild water has many parasites, beware of a snake in your stomach. In many survival shows, they drank raw water because they had a support team, medical care, and short trips. But so Phong and Van Han had no such support. Living 1 year in the wild meant being careful with every detail. Too thirsty, I almost forgot. Van Han shivered, her face pale. Extreme thirst weakens the body, leaving only instinct. Come, let us find a place nearby to make fire. Seeing her cracked lips, So Phong led her north. He had already noticed a secluded spot not far from the water source. It should be noon now. He looked at the sky, then around the open ground, dozens of meters wide, full of rocks. Will we build shelter here? Van Han asked doubtfully, glancing at the stones. Yes, this place is good, higher ground. So Phong replied. Wouldn't the forest be better, with materials right there? Van Han asked curiously. The forest is too damp, we must stay a year, so we need sunlit ground. He looked up at the sky. Rain would not be rare on the island, and drying clothes in the forest would be hard. Understood. She nodded, though her survival knowledge was too little. The forest was damp, wood half wet, hard to light. Here, wood in the rocks dried quickly under the sun. I will pick up firewood. She started gathering branches. First, prepare a fire bed. So Phong sat on a rock, chopped wood into chips. Crack, crack, crack. He piled chips into a nest as tinder. Find harder wood. He picked a stick as thick as a finger, then told her, sit and rest a while. Okay. She sat beside him. Let us light it. He placed the board, stepped on it, spun the stick fast. Crack, crack, squeak. The stick rubbed hard. Minutes later, smoke rose from the blackened spot. Smoke! Van Han grew nervous, first time experiencing it. Her gaze left the stick, seeing his sweaty forehead, and she gently wiped it, tenderly. The scene softened viewers. The lowly is too cute. Mother, I want love, give me such a girl. 10 fish balls gift. Hum inside, asked, Teacher Vong, how is So Phong's fire making? Cough cough, his method is standard. Von Lam coughed, suddenly thinking of an outing with his wife. Wow, childhood sweethearts. No Tin Noyet covered her mouth, eyes bright. Te Vidin quietly drank water, frowning at the bitter taste. Chapter 22, The Fire Ignites. What is it? So Phong spun the wooden stick in his hand, lifting his head to see the girl's radiant smile. He was dazed. Why was she so happy? Nothing. Van Han shook her head, lips curved in a gentle smile, then pulled out an old pair of pants from her sleeping bag. So Phong, should I tear these pants? She asked, tilting her head. Tear them, but keep the strong threads, he suggested. To avoid breaking the line, Van Han shaved a wooden thorn with the hatchet, then carefully threaded it. So Phong watched her serious face, then bowed lower, spinning harder, as smoke thickened. Crack, crack, crack. The stick scraped against the board, black powder falling from the V-shaped groove, dropping onto the dry tinder. The last step. So Phong focused, smoke curling up. He placed aside the tools, cupped the tinder in both hands, wrapped the powder, and blew evenly. Smoke rose thicker, sparks glowed, then flames burst upward. It is burning, he shouted excitedly, placing the tinder down, adding small sticks until a fire blazed bright. Van Han let out a relieved breath at the sight. I will set a frame. So Phong swiftly cut long sticks, tied them with vines into a pyramid. With a wooden hook we can cook water. He carved a branch into a hook, tied it on, and hung the iron pot. We can boil water, he smiled. With that done, his heavy burden lifted, for now they had fire, water, and soon a shelter. Except for food, most essentials were ready the very first day. So Phong, can these threads fish? Van Han asked, hands still moving, wrapping thread on wood. They can catch small fish, not big ones, for we have no hook, he said. Survival on an island was unexpected, he thought it would be a forest inland. No needle, he muttered. It is fine, tonight I will carve a wooden pin, though harder. Van Han replied cheerfully. All right, watch the fire, I will chop wood, he said, looking around for dry branches, keeping the wet ones for shelter. I will not go far, only nearby, he assured, unwilling to leave her long. Go on, she nodded, tearing cloth carefully. Those pants had been their cloth for a year, she must plan its use. Shelter was crucial, for rain could bring sickness if they were unprepared. He cut branches near, arm thick, light enough to drag. Thud thud thud, echoed. After half an hour he had more than 10 branches, tied them, dragged back. Huff huff. He sweated, throat parched. Want to drink? He asked. Yes. Van Han handed the pot, having boiled water and cooled it with her spade as a fan. He looked at her rosy lips, feeling stirred, but silently took the pot, drinking deeply. How to build the shelter, she asked curiously. NK books. A human-shaped hut, he said firmly. We can build by the big rock, easier, she pointed. No, that place is for the permanent shelter later, now only a simple one, he shook his head. He knew time pressed, the first afternoon needed quick work. He looked up, judged it was 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Ah, I see. Van Han clapped her head, suddenly realizing, blaming her own slowness today. Chapter 23, Building a Shelter. At this moment the girl's reactions were much slower, and with her weak physique, Van Han could barely keep up with So Fong's thoughts. Some people would starve after just 1 day without food, let alone while moving, and after 2 days they might faint. So Phong noticed that Van Han was not in good condition, but today they had to finish building the temporary shelter. He handed her the iron pot and said softly, first tear a cloth into 2 pieces to make face towels, in the evening we will wash up a bit. I will help you build this, the towel can wait until tonight. Van Han shook her head, set the pot aside, and grabbed the army shovel to cut the vines. So stubborn. So Phong sighed, but since they understood each other he did not argue. He patted the leaves stuck on his pants and said, I will pull back the rest of the logs. All right, go ahead. Van Han bent down, using the shovel to trim branches. The shovel prepared by the crew had 3 basic functions, a spade, with blades and a saw on both sides. Swish swish. So Phong soon dragged back all the logs, cut more vines, stripped the branches, and tied one end with 4 strong knots. Thus 2 stands were made, then a crossbeam laid on top, with angled logs tied to the sides and leaves spread over. This type is called a double slope shelter, or A-frame, it keeps warmth well. So Phong explained briefly. It is fine, just stack the leaves layer by layer and press them tightly, then it will block water well. He said with confidence. Then I will handle the leaves. Van Han crouched down, carefully arranging the leaves in overlapping layers. So Phong bent down carrying the wood, completed the main frame, tied more vines at the joints to make it strong enough to withstand sea winds. Such work must not be done lazily, for once in a critical moment it would all collapse. Done. He looked at the finished frame, stretched his sore arms, then tied the leaves that Van Han had stacked onto it. There was no time to find other materials, using what was at hand was best. After 2 hours the shelter, about 2 meters long and tall, was covered in green leaves, looking like a green tent. Finally finished. Van Han said tiredly, rubbing her waist, her face full of pride. Still, leaves alone could not block rain completely, so another layer of grass was needed. Bang bang bang! So Phong beat the grass with a wooden stick to check for snakes, then after cutting also collected edible wild greens. Suddenly a long snake darted out of the grass, but he reacted quickly, struck its head with the stick. Thud! Do not even try to escape. He smiled, grabbed the chopping knife and struck, severing the snake's head. It is an elaphtinura, also called a flower snake. He held the writhing body, then said with relief, "Tonight we have food." He coiled the snake, tied it at his waist, and carried the grass back to camp. That boy is really bold, he rushed at the snake instead of running. 10 points, I like him now. I think Van Han does not dare eat snake, just seeing it is scary. Snake meat is delicious, once you taste it you want more. Warning, parasites ahead. In the live broadcast hall, the screen switched back to So Phong and Van Han. This was arranged by the director, as long as there was something special, the shot changed. This is an elaphtinura, also called a flower snake, non-venomous, and in the south many people catch it for food. Wang Lin explained. What, does So Phong want to eat that snake? Wu Ting Yu asked in surprise. In the wild, catching a snake is a gift from heaven. Wang Lin said, spreading his arms. He had tasted many snakes before, the flavor was poor, especially grilled without spices it was too fishy. Except for Lu Wai-Mang who luckily shot a bamboo rat, So Fong's team is the second to find food. Ha Min said. Chapter 24, Mysterious. She joined the survival challenge, surely she would not eat snake meat. I really do not know. Ha Min was unsure, usually girls were afraid of snakes. He turned to Te Vai Din and asked, Vai Din, do you dare to eat snake meat? I have tried it. Te Vai Din replied calmly. Ha? No Tin Noyet was surprised. In a survival challenge, if you cannot overcome psychological obstacles, sooner or later you will be eliminated. Vong Lam said coldly. Let us keep watching, So Phong is heading back to the camp. Ha Min stared at the screen. At this moment, So Phong carried grass back to the camp, threw it down, and called out, Van Han, look what I caught. What? Van Han looked up doubtfully. So Phong pulled down a snake from his waist, raised it in front of the girl, and boasted, well, tonight we have snake meat. Is this a snake? A colorful viper? Van Han's eyes lit up. She took the snake, studied it carefully, and asked, how did you catch it? While cutting grass I caught it. So Phong laughed boldly. A tired snake could not resist, 2 people struck and it was done. Tonight we will stew it, since Elder Von left, it has been long since we ate snake meat. Van Han's face dimmed. The orphanage had no income, only old people and some kind donors supported it. To eat well was hard, they could only fill the belly, meat was rare, having it twice a week was already good. So Phong and Van Han grew up in the orphanage, they craved meat. Snake meat they had eaten often, all thanks to Elder Von who hunted for the children. Snakes, frogs, wild chickens, he caught many. Of course, live snakes were scary, but once dead, in her eyes it was only food. All right, let us deal with it at night. So Phong said softly, laying grass on the shelter, inside and outside. What is this? The little lowly is excited seeing a snake. NK Books. Was this not the scared little lowly? Why is she braver than me? Unbelievable, my courage is less than hers. Cough, truly brave. Von Lam coughed awkwardly, then changed the topic. So Phong built the shelter very well, seems he has studied it carefully. No Tin Noyet was silent, her eyes fixed on the girl on screen. She could not understand why Van Han suddenly became so brave. So Phong was busy, forgetting there was still a drone above. He cut 2 more bundles of grass, finishing the shelter, especially laying a thick layer on the ground to block insects. Spread the sleeping bag inside. So Phong told the girl. Okay. Van Han carried the sleeping bag in, arranged it, then froze. Her cheeks reddened, she looked at the only sleeping bag, and her thoughts went astray. Would they have to sleep together tonight? But his sweaty smell, would it choke her? What should I do now? Van Han blushed, rolling on the sleeping bag. So Phong built a tent to cover the fire, prevent rain from putting it out, right at the entrance. This way it protected the shelter and kept warmth. More importantly, it kept the firewood dry. The island weather was harsh, it could rain for days. The tent was made with a single sloping roof, about 60 degrees, an ideal angle to reflect heat inside and guide rainwater away. Done. So Phong clapped his hands. After half an hour the tent was ready. Now only the fire and wood needed moving. He looked at the girl collecting firewood, noticing she seemed different after coming out. Could it be? So Phong patted his forehead, frowned in thought, then stood up, grabbed his axe, and went into the bushes. 20 minutes later, he returned with a bundle of vines. Yes, a very important thing. So Phong nodded seriously. What exactly is it? Van Han asked curiously. Mysterious. Van Han pouted, rolled her eyes, and carried firewood to the tent. Chapter 25, Salted Fish. Did you make so many vines to set a trap? Double fishtails, indeed the little lowly in the middle is more interesting. I am back too, the other challengers are really miserable. Many viewers left but then returned, even sending gifts, directly pushing the number to 9 million, ranking it 7th place. Crack crack. Next is weaving. He muttered, holding the vines and threading them through the wooden sticks. No, just wait a moment and you will know. Sua Phong smiled, threading the vines quickly, each gap as wide as a fist. Humph. Van Han wrinkled her nose and carried firewood away. Sua Phong focused on his work. The girl occasionally stopped, feeling a strange warmth in her heart. After 20 minutes, Sua Phong looked at the 2-meter-high cage before him and nodded with satisfaction. Only one last step. Sua Phong, it is almost dark. Van Han stood beside him, gazing at the evening sky. Unknowingly, time had reached dusk. All right. Van Han went to tend the fire. 10 minutes later, she returned. The cage was already covered with leaves, hiding the inside completely. What are you doing? Can you tell me now? Van Han urged. Sua Phong smiled silently, whispered in her ear, prepare the towels, we will bathe by the waterfall. What? Van Han's eyes widened, her cheeks flushed, she whispered angrily, this cage is for a bathroom? Of course, after sweating all day, without washing we will become salted fish. Sua Phong spoke firmly. In the wild, sweating without changing clothes would reek in less than 2 days. Put. Van Han laughed, lightly slapped Sua Phong, and walked happily to the hiding place. Girls love cleanliness, Van Han was no exception. She once worried about sleeping with a sweaty body, unexpectedly Sua Phong solved it. That warmed her heart, suddenly life outdoors seemed good. Van Han carried many things, a snake hanging on her waist, we still need to wash the wild vegetables and deal with this snake. He glanced west, the scorching heat had faded, at most half an hour until sunset. Van Han followed obediently. The path to the water had been cleared, making the walk easier. Splash splash. Minutes later, they reached the waterfall. What now? Van Han blushed, not daring to look at Sua Phong. I will find a spot first. Sua Phong set down the cage, poked the water with his stick, found no problem, then approached the pond. He saw a shallow place with stones, moved them aside, creating a small pit. After the muddy water was swept away, he said, here, stand among the rocks. All right. Van Han's eyes sparkled, she cut cloth into 2 towels. Blushing, she stood among the rocks, holding the towel tightly, not daring to face Sua Phong, for this was bathing outdoors, separated only by a wooden cage. The water is cold, do not rub too long. Sua Phong reminded. Okay, just call out once. Then he raised the cage to cover her. He stretched his back, used a stick to strike the plants around, driving away animals. 4 dusk was when creatures became active. Meanwhile, the live stream exploded. From the moment Van Han entered the cage, many guessed what was happening. My God, why did I not think? The cage is for bathing. How did Sua Fong's mind come up with that? Why does it feel like camping, even with bathing? I pity the other challengers. Tonight they will sleep and stink. That boy is so thoughtful, using the cage as a bathroom. I envy the little lowly. Do you not see how much the little lowly helped today? Chapter 26. This is a woman's scent. Finally done. Lu Wai Thursday rubbed her aching waist, gazing at the shelter they had just built. It was an A-shaped hut she had learned online, taking the sisters the whole day to complete. Luckily, they landed near a small bamboo grove. Though not big, it was heaven sent for them. One could say Lu Waimong was truly lucky, since the draw decided both rank and landing point. The show had many locations with unique features, some easy-to-build shelters, others rich in wild plants. The sisters got the bamboo grove point. So tired. Lu Waimong bent over, unwilling to move. Can we rest? She asked hopefully, wanting to lie inside the shelter. No. Lu Wai Thursday denied flatly, then said, we need more water, more firewood, and the bamboo rat is not yet processed. You are a demon. Lu Waimong pouted. Lu Wai Thursday twitched her lips, knowing her sister was acting again, and played along. Humph, this little lamb must behave. Otherwise, Lu Waimong would act alone endlessly. Haha, the lamb wants to sleep and make milk. Lu Waimong jumped, trying to rush into the shelter. Their playful moment ended abruptly. Clack! Lu Wai Thursday, expressionless, withdrew her hand from her sister's head, rolled her eyes. Come on, fetch water and handle the bamboo rat. Okay. Lu Waimong answered weakly. Bring the bow and arrows, maybe another rat hits the bamboo. Her tone carried ease. Earlier, Lu Waimong insisted on going straight into the grove to hunt. Dragging her was useless. Thanks to that, they had seen bamboo rats. Startled, the rats scattered. One fat rat crashed into bamboo and was shot down by her arrow. What, even without crashing, I could still hit it? Lu Waimong shouted unwillingly. Yes, yes. Lu Wai Thursday replied casually, carrying the rat and pot, walking out first. Wait for me. Lu Waimong followed with bow and arrows. Outside was a small stream, the flow weak but clean. A few minutes later. Sis, have you ever killed a bamboo rat? Lu Waimong asked, knowing her sister could not cook. Let me do it. She snatched the knife and rat, saying, you go collect firewood. Can you manage? Lu Wai Thursday worried. No problem, I have killed chickens, not much different. Lu Waimong waved her hand. She loved archery, had hunted with friends, even chased wild chickens. Fine, be careful with the knife. Lu Wai Thursday half believed, glancing at the sunset, evening was coming. She went to collect dry wood. When they first arrived, they decided to build here. The first thing was to light fire and boil water. With flint it was easy. Lu Wai Thursday returned with wood, saw little meat left, feeling a pang of regret. Sis, rat processed, organs buried. Lu Waimong smiled proudly, showing a chunk of meat in both hands. Just a bit fishy. Her smile fell, sniffing her own armpit, frowning, our whole bodies reek salty. After sweating all day, of course they stank. This is a woman's scent. Lu Wai Thursday said casually, knowing her sister would act strangely again. Lu Waimong rolled eyes, such scent could scare a bear away. Mentioning bears, she suddenly asked, Sis, how are So Phong and Van Han now? No idea. Lu Wai Thursday shook her head, hesitating, probably not well. True, not everyone is as lucky as us. Lu Waimong boasted. Come, let us return. Lu Wai Thursday carried wood back. Lu Waimong carried meat following, chatting, I think he is interesting, better than those fools at school. Lu Waimong, shut your mouth. Lu Wai Thursday's temple twitched, she had not forgotten it was a live broadcast. She urged, "Hurry, evening comes." Coming. Chapter 27, Another Use. So Phong fiercely struck the trees around, creating a loud noise to scare off wild beasts, then glanced at the wooden cage. He looked at the sky, squatted down, and said while holding the chopping knife, "It is almost dark, we should deal with the snake first." So Phong found a small vine, tied the snake to a branch, and began skinning it from the head. Following his knowledge, he easily removed the skin and the organs. When done, the snake looked thinner, only half a meter long, not very big, with more bones than meat, so not much was left to eat. Not much meat, looks like today we can only eat more wild greens. He cut the meat into thumb-sized pieces. Wild vegetables were easy to find on the island, but the key was knowing how to tell them apart, otherwise everything would look like grass. Tomorrow I should walk around, see what edible things can be found. He glanced at the wooden cage and muttered, "Or else I cannot fatten up Van Han." "So Phong, I am fine." Van Han's voice suddenly came. "It is your turn." Van Han's face turned red as she shyly pulled at her collar. "Are you cold?" So Phong asked with concern. "A little bit." Van Han lowered her head, her voice as small as a mosquito. "Do not wear the underwear now, wait until I wash it, tonight dry it by the fire and wear again." So Phong nodded silently, not saying more, afraid she would be too embarrassed. "Here is a towel." Van Han handed him the wet towel and quickly ran away. "The same towel?" So Phong raised his head, seeing the girl in a loose jacket, squatting to wash her underwear. Inside the dark cage, he could only rely on touch. He washed his pants and underwear in the cold water. Hoo-hoo! So Phong put on his pants again, with nothing inside, feeling the cold like an air conditioner. He stuffed the underwear into the bag, whispering, "Only now can we wash, when it gets colder we cannot anymore. There is 1 month before winter, we must plan carefully." He dragged the wooden cage and walked to Van Han, who was rinsing wild greens. "Let me, I will wash too." Van Han's face was red, but she pretended to be calm and reached out. "Yes." So Phong handed her the underwear, his heart beating faster. Bang bang. Van Han lowered her head, hitting the underwear with a stick, sometimes rubbing it, then placed it together with her clothes. TCH. So Phong curved his lips, seeing the wooden stick made him calm down. A few minutes later. "Done, we can go back." Van Han held the iron pot in one hand and clothes in the other, looking like a gentle little wife. "Yes, let us go back." So Phong smiled, carried the cage, and prepared to return. "So Phong, just leave the cage here, moving it is troublesome," Van Han quickly advised. "No, the cage has another use." So Phong shook his head, smiling mischievously, "Bring it back, fix it, and it can be used as a toilet, so you do not need to go into the forest. Go quickly, it is getting dark." Van Han blushed, ignoring him. "Okay." So Phong looked at her back and quickly followed. The drone camera recorded the two under the sunset, their shadows filled with warmth, like a scene in an anime. "They should be fine." So Phong murmured. "Yes, they should have meat to eat." He agreed with her. He also believed the other groups would be fine, as they included hunters, retired special soldiers, and survival experts. But the truth, only the audience knew. "It will last more than a month," So Phong said confidently. His goal was not just a month, but the grand prize, the land he so desired. Chapter 28, The First Night. It has been so long since I saw such a sky. Van Han lifted her head, her eyes filled with longing. She could not recall since when, but always rushing to school and rushing home, she never paused to gaze at the sky. "Do not worry, from now on you will always see such scenery." Se Phong, while it was not yet fully dark, picked up the engineer's shovel to dig a pit. Clang, clang. The sound of metal striking stone made one's skin crawl. "Then I will start making dinner." Van Han spoke softly, her voice gentle. She only sighed a little before continuing. All right. Se Phong replied, piling the mud by the pit, planning to cover it after use. It was just a temporary toilet. Once they secured enough food they would plan a shelter with water. Hoo. Se Phong slowed down his work to avoid sweating too much. He fixed the wooden cage, then dug drainage ditches around the shelter to lead excess water away. Done. After half an hour of work under the small fire, the drainage was complete. Rumble. A sudden thunder rolled across the horizon. Se Phong looked up. The sky was pitch black, even the moon hidden. He frowned and muttered, could it rain tonight? In the distance a flash of lightning clawed across the sky, followed by thunder. Rumble. It seems rain has begun far away. Se Phong was not worried, they had a shelter to hide from the rain. He shoveled dirt over the small fires outside, then returned. Clatter, clatter. At the entrance he smelled meat and heard boiling water. He saw Van Han by the fire, carving chopsticks from wood, with a finished pear placed beside her. Is it ready? She lifted her head, her slim wrist trembling slightly as she put down the knife. Let me do it. Se Phong reached for the knife. No need, taste it first. Van Han gently pushed his hand away. Se Phong did not insist. He lifted the lid and saw wild greens stewed with snake meat. How is it? Her dark eyes shone with hope. This was her first wild meal, without skill or spices. The flavor is fine, thanks to the greens covering the snake smell. Se Phong chewed slowly like a gourmet. That is good. Van Han let out a breath. Her cheeks flushed. She bit the snake meat, chewed twice, then frowned, saying, it tastes bitter. It is fine, bitterness is also a flavor. Se Phong replied casually, at least it was not foul. Van Han did not dwell, she said, it has stewed half an hour, take it down. A few minutes later. Se Phong, eat the meat. Van Han scolded softly, putting a piece by his lips. You eat, I already had a few pieces. He answered, then drank the soup straight from the pot. I am not blind. Van Han muttered, wrinkling her nose, then stuffed meat into his mouth when he set the pot down. You. Se Phong froze, then smiled and chewed. Eat more, tomorrow you need strength. Van Han murmured, picking up greens to eat. All right, I am full, the rest is yours. Se Phong tossed the bones into the fire, stretching his back, reminding, finish them, or the smell will bring bears at night. You. Van Han pouted and said unhappily, you should eat more meat, I want to lose weight. Lose weight next time. Se Phong grumbled, such an excuse was too poor, if thinner she would be skin and bones. Seeing she still wanted to argue, he assured, I am full, I ate much soup and greens, I cannot eat more meat. Van Han sighed inwardly, his excuses were always poor. I do not like meat. Put. Se Phong almost spat blood, she lied so smoothly, her skill improving. He looked at the 3 pieces of snake meat left, quickly grabbed one and stuffed it into his mouth, speaking muffled, do not yield, the last 2 are yours. Van Han wanted to say more, but his gaze silenced her, she obediently held the pot and ate. Such scenes often happened, even back when they rented a room, the two always fought tricks to make the other eat more meat. Chapter 29, No Time to be Idle. Van Han quickly put the snake meat into the iron pot, shaking the rim so it mixed with wild greens. So Phong watched her, feeling both amused and bitter. The pot, big as a head, held half a foot of skinned snake, mixed with half a pot of greens, turning into a wild snake soup. So Phong ate 1/5, just over 1 bowl, enough to feel full. The rest he left for the girl, which was only 3 or 4 parts of satiety, mostly greens and broth. This is true wilderness survival. He muttered, compared to before, now it felt more fulfilling. He thought at first it was just hunger, but feasts would come, the wild was not for suffering but for savoring. I am full. Van Han happily set the pot down, patting her belly. Bring me the chopping knife. So Phong looked at her innocent eyes, not exposing her clumsy act. "All right." She sighed with relief and handed it over. So Phong smiled at her timid look. "It is fine, tomorrow will be better." NK
Yes,
Books. I believe. Van Han chuckled. "I will carve a wooden needle, tonight we mend 2 underclothes." So Phong picked a tough branch. She lifted the clothes nearby and hung them on the rack by the fire. When hanging underwear, she glanced at the camera, shifted to block it, then put them up. Crack, crack. The sound of carving rang, so Phong looked at her face glowing from firelight. "Turn them often, or they will burn." "Ah." Van Han froze, then hurriedly flipped the cloth. Crack, crack. His lips curved, her thoughts still easy to read. He quickly carved a wooden needle. He handed it to her. "I cut a groove at the back, tie thread here, it will work as a needle." "Okay." She took it, tied the thread tightly, and a sewing needle was ready. It was her first time sewing men's underwear, without any experience. "Just follow that shape, use cloth at the waist as a belt." He pointed at the drying pants. "I will try." She stared, then picked the fabric to start. In the wild at night, one cannot stay idle, or loneliness will stir restless thoughts. People used to the city, suddenly living in the wild, without phones, fast food, or computers, feel a loss, get bored and irritable, finally give up. Crack, crack. So Phong carved while splitting wood, wanting to make spoons so they would not drink soup from the pot. Night was good for such work, carved chopsticks and spoons for daily use. After a while, boom! The night sky thundered, making both stop. "Is it going to rain?" Van Han asked fearfully. She looked at the shelter of wood and leaves, worried it would leak or collapse. "Will this hold?" she asked. "Do not worry, unless strong winds come, it can withstand heavy rain." So Phong reassured. Minutes later. Drip drop. Rain fell on the roof, the sound of water rang clear in their ears. Chapter 30, True Wilderness Survival. Rain poured onto the shelter roof, the dripping sound echoed in Duong Thuong's ears, making him even more upset as the shelter leaked. Duong Thuong sat in his jacket beside the fire, his eyes dull as he stared at the mushrooms roasting on the wooden rack. Clop clop. "I am so hungry." He patted his belly, glanced at the water dripping from the leaves above. After a whole day of working, the shelter still leaked. It is nothing like in the videos. He gritted his teeth, lowered his head at the fire. The dirty sweat smell on his body made him more annoyed. Before coming here, he watched survival videos. Everything seemed easy, food found easily, shelter built with ease. But for him, nothing worked. After a whole day, he only found some mushrooms, his body sore, water was scarce. The wild plant knowledge he studied before helped nothing. Squatting in the grass, everything looked like weeds. At last he only found some edible mushrooms. Crack, crack. Outside the shelter, Tunbin stood in the rain, using his military knife to cut branches, stacking leaves to seal the shelter. If alone, some leaking was fine, but with his young master here, he must keep it dry. Bah! Tunbin wiped his face, spat out the rainwater. "It has been so long since I saw this." He smiled faintly, bent his head, kept stacking leaves. He did not know how long the rain would last, but at least the leaking must not worsen, or they could not rest tonight. The rain is really cold. The drone camera filmed it all and streamed live to the audience. Tunbin is crazy, still building in heavy rain. That Duong Thuong is disgusting, like a pampered young master. He does not help, just sits in a jacket by the fire. All day only Tunbin works, Duong Thuong hinders, he is just here to play. Real, so real, this is true survival. Poor Tunbin, teamed with a pig teammate. In the broadcast hall, the director switched the scene, giving those likely to be eliminated more screen time, since later they would vanish. At least Duong Thuong should give his jacket to Tunbin. Ha Min scolded. He cannot last much longer. Vong Lam looked at Tai Vai Din, feeling uneasy. Earlier he mocked So Phong and Van Han for not lasting a day, yet they endured, while Duong Thuong now is shameful. Tai Bai Din curved her lips in a faint smile. The sharp eyes of a martial artist saw everything clearly. Your eyes are really sharp, Bai Din. Ha Min praised. Just coincidence. Tai Bai Din smiled faintly. She was a national martial officer, but only at body training level. Surviving in the wild was not guaranteed, let alone Duong Thuong, a pampered heir. From the helicopter view earlier, she already saw Duong Thuong rely entirely on Tun Bin, doing nothing himself. Now, Duong Thuong grew more irritable, nothing pleased him. A man used to modern comforts could not bear this hardship. More importantly, his mindset was wrong. He came here as if for fun, not for the prize. Bah, it tastes awful. Duong Thuong bit a mushroom then threw it into the fire. The roasted mushrooms had no flavor, only a burnt smell, nauseating. He rolled his eyes, slapped his thigh, muttered, "Right, I almost forgot, I still have a business deal to sign." Using it as an excuse, and also wishing to leave, he decided without hesitation. Okay. Tun Bin's hoarse voice came. Young master, you eat first. He picked up the burnt mushroom skewer, blew on it, then bit with a satisfied smile. Tun Bin, do not eat, it is all burnt. Duong Thuong stood, snatched the skewer from him, tossed it into the fire, then even kicked the other skewers in. Tun Bin froze, staring blankly at the mushrooms and the flames, his wet hair dripping water down his face. Do not stand dazed, let us leave. Duong Thuong pressed his lips, patted Tun Bin's shoulder, explained softly, tomorrow I have a meeting, tonight let us return. Okay. Tun Bin replied hoarsely. Chapter 31, So Phong, turn around. Duong Thuong comforted with a smile, I think So Phong and those twin sisters must have already withdrawn. Tun Bin pressed his lips, silent, pale and gloomy, squatting down to collect the tools. NK books. Who? Duong Thuong exhaled, took out the satellite phone and pressed the button. Beep beep beep. After 3 seconds the call was connected. Hey, is this Duong Thuong? The staff spoke faintly. Yes, I just remembered I have to attend a meeting tomorrow, I want to return tonight. Duong Thuong spoke regretfully, using the excuse smoothly as if practiced many times. The staff was silent for a few seconds, then said, all right, please wait there, we will send a helicopter to pick you up. Good, thank you. Duong Thuong hung up, his body relaxed, soon he could return to civilized life. At this moment he missed steak, missed the mansion he rarely stayed in, and especially missed his elderly parents. Half an hour later. Buzz buzz buzz. In the rainy night came the sound of a helicopter. Beep beep beep. The satellite phone rang again. Once connected the staff said, Tun Bin, Duong Thuong, fasten your safety belts. Without waiting for an answer, a strong wind swept by, the branches of their shelter flew, and a rope descended from above. Young Master Duong, come quickly. Tun Bin went out first, the helicopter spotlight shone directly on him. Thus, the two were taken away by helicopter. Wilderness Survival 365 days, Team 5 was eliminated. Buzz buzz buzz. This time, So Phong and Van Han looked up at the dark sky. So Phong, it sounds like a helicopter. Van Han stopped her embroidery, curiously asked, does that mean someone was eliminated? It should be, maybe someone got injured. So Phong crushed the wood chips on his leg, shook his sore wrist, and thought, I wonder who is so unlucky. Yes, only injuries could make them leave on the very first afternoon, I truly pity them. Van Han sighed. Viewers in the livestream were amused by their conversation, especially those who had just left Duong Thuong's side. These two are really amusing. No, I think they are teasing Duong Thuong. Indeed, when Duong Thuong watches the recording, he will blush. Ah. Van Han narrowed her eyes, awkwardly smiled, looking at the four-cornered pants just finished 1/5, she felt powerless, her eyelids heavy as if fighting each other. So what now? So Phong looked at her tired face and urged, go to sleep, you have worked hard all day, rest early. What about you? Van Han rubbed her disobedient eyelids. The wilderness at night was extremely dangerous, especially knowing there were bears nearby. They must not be careless. But the campfire could scare wild beasts. Not long more, you go sleep. So Phong urged again, gently taking away her embroidery. All right then. Van Han smiled awkwardly, touched the clothes drying by the fire. Go inside and change. So Phong pointed at the sleeping bag. Van Han's face flushed. She took her clothes and entered the sleeping bag in the shelter. The sleeping bag was the largest size, her petite body slipped in with no crowding, enough space for 3 of her size. This sleeping bag is so comfortable. Van Han murmured, feeling like she would fall asleep immediately. She shook her head, thinking of the jacket with nothing underneath, reluctantly tried to put on her clothes. As she was about to remove her jacket, she turned her head to the fire, her eyes met So Fong's. Her cheeks turned redder, shyly said, So Fong, turn around. All right. So Fong could not help but laugh, turned around, then adjusted the camera so it would not capture the sleeping bag. A few minutes later. Okay. Van Han's timid voice came. Go to sleep. So Fong turned back, looking at the jacket covering the sleeping bag. Van Han softly replied, looked at him one more time, then closed her eyes in peace. So Fong looked at the rainy night, added more firewood, muttered, I hope tomorrow will not rain, otherwise it will be troublesome. Chapter 32, The Lone Maiden. The chirping of birds rang out, once a pleasant sound, but now it disturbed the sweet dream. No. Van Han let out a faint murmur, her nose twitched, the warmth made her rub against it. 1 second, 2 seconds, then 3 seconds passed. The girl slowly regained consciousness, suddenly opened her eyes and found herself lying in So Fong's arms. Her cheeks instantly flushed red, her ears turned hot, her body stiffened, and she felt utterly lost. What startled her most was her leg resting on his thigh, and her arm around his waist, the warmth and softness beneath her palm making her more flustered. Hoo. For the first time in such a situation, she drew several deep breaths, suppressing the blush in her heart, trying to find a way out of this embarrassment. Fearing it would be awkward if they both woke up together, Van Han carefully pulled her hand back from his waist and gently withdrew her leg. Sleeping like this, he looks so cute. She gazed at his sleeping face, his handsome features softened by an innocent charm. She quickly shook her head, chased away the strange thoughts, and carefully slipped out of his arms, crawling out of the sleeping bag. It really is a bit cold. She quietly put on her jacket, slipped into her waterproof shoes, and stepped outside the shelter. As soon as she left, So Phong opened his eyes. In truth, he had woken when she moved, but kept still so she would not feel embarrassed. Last night he had kept watch until midnight, then crawled into his bag, falling asleep the moment he touched it. There had been nothing ambiguous, for when one is too exhausted, there is no strength left for other thoughts, only sleep. After a few minutes, So Fong finally rose. TCH. He shivered as soon as he got out, hurried to put on his trousers, stretched his body in place, letting it adapt to the cold air. Mark it. He ordered silently, and the simulated calendar appeared, the slot for the 4th day lit up. He then closed the interface, sighed softly, 3 more days to claim the reward pack. He stepped out of the shelter, saw Van Han coming from the wooden restroom, smiled and waved, Good morning. Good morning. Her cheeks were tinged with red, her eyes flickered, avoiding his gaze. Looks like it is only a little past NK 6. Books. He murmured, eyes raised toward the white clouds above. She too lifted her face toward the morning light, growing quiet. After a while, she turned back, and saw him tending the fire. Let's boil some water, then later scout around, he said as the flames rose. I will fetch the water, it is not too far, she suggested, her small hand gripping the iron pot tightly. After all, not every trip should need both of them, such simple tasks she could manage herself. So Phong hesitated, his eyes falling on her determined expression, then nodded, Bring the wooden stick, do it as I did yesterday. They had only just arrived, the traces they left were still faint, especially after the heavy rain. Beasts would not avoid them, only long habitation would make them wary. All right, I understand. Van Han hefted the iron pot and wooden stick, walking toward the waterfall. If anything happens, call out loud. He reminded. Got it. She waved her pot, then skipped away. Truly, afraid yet insisting to go. He muttered, watching her quick steps, seeing through her mind. Bang bang bang. Ha. Oh ha. Lack ha. I never thought Van Han could be this innocent. His lips twitched, stifling a laugh, finding her very endearing. He remembered their half-year together. She always acted sensible, pretending maturity. He sighed, perhaps this is her true happy self. Seems that animals are already active early. His expression turned serious, carefully examining the tracks, among them fox and pheasant footprints. Chapter 33, the first matter to resolve. To set traps one must have rope, so Phong glanced around and soon found bark suitable for weaving. In the wilderness rope is invaluable, if lacking one must make it, and bark is the best material. People usually choose durable bark like the cedar tree. He cast a glance at Van Han's back in the distance, then picked up his axe, selected a tree and began peeling. Under the sharp blade large pieces of bark came off easily. He stripped several before stopping. Suddenly he heard the girl's strange voice. Ha! Hello? Van Han had just filled the water and was cheerfully heading back. I really want her to see her own look later. He chuckled, glanced at the drone above, then carried the bark back to camp. What was that just now? Van Han halted, wary eyes scanning the forest, as if a shadow flickered past. Better hurry back. Are these footprints? While running she caught sight of a trace in the mud, then stopped in doubt. I did not just step here. A moment later she realized whose prints they were. So Phong came this way. Was he worried about me? A bright smile bloomed, her fear swept away. Panting she slowed her steps, muttering complaints, yet her tone brimmed with joy. Before when I competed, he even asked leave from the teacher to secretly follow me, making Lisa laugh at me for so long. Naughty Phong, he treats me like a child. The proud girl murmured, her spirit lifted, and she even shouted among the crowd. I think Phong is really adorable. I want a brother like that. But do not dream, first you must be as cute as a little lowly, caring and diligent, then. Harsh truth, wake up. Carrying the iron pot she returned, finding Phong working with bark. She hung the pot, lit a fire, then crouched beside him and asked. Phong, where did you get this bark? I just peeled it over there. He pointed casually opposite the waterfall. And what do you plan to do with it? She did not expose that he followed her, pretending not to know. Let me help. She eagerly took a small shovel to imitate. His hands did not stop as he softly asked. Will you come with me into the forest, or stay to guard camp? I want to go with you. She answered at once, planning to gather wild greens. The rain had left many mushrooms. She reasoned if nothing else, greens and mushrooms could sustain them for some days. Fine. He also wished to teach her survival skills. Phong, how to turn this into rope? She asked curiously, slender fingers touching the fibrous layer. Tear the soft fibers into equal strips, rub them loose, then divide into 3 and braid, just as the old matron once taught you to braid hair. His tone was gentle and patient. Making rope demanded patience, especially for traps, needing refinement so prey would not escape. We should prepare more ropes like this, later when building shelter it will be useful. She suggested, her hands quick as she braided, recalling her childhood habit of plaiting. Can we really catch prey? She asked with curiosity. Should be, there are many animal tracks nearby. He thought of rabbit prints he had seen. Or should we check the shore? The girl leapt up with excitement. Tilting her head, her sweet voice rang. On TV they say the shore has many things, maybe we find useful trash, like plastic bottles, so we would not always need the iron pot for water. All right, after scouting the area we will go. He answered with patience. He remembered when they landed he had seen only driftwood, yet food might be there, like shells or seaweed. Chapter 34, The Wilderness is Cruel and Merciless. Trin Bang Hui and his disciple Li Feng were devastated, facing the lowest point of their lives. They had some survival experience. The first day was not too bad, at least they built a shelter and found water. Food was not urgent, with Trin Bang Hui being a former hunter. Once the shelter was secured, hunting prey was easy. The most important thing was that he had seized a bow, which gave them confidence to aim for first place. Yet, one sudden rain woke them up. They remembered to shelter from rain, but they had not thought the spot was low ground, so when the tide rose at night, their shelter was flooded by the sea. At night, they stumbled to higher land, built a rough shelter in the pitch dark and pouring rain. It was useless except for a little comfort. Master, what should we do now? Li Feng asked hoarsely, his head spinning, wanting to sleep immediately. Drenched all night in autumn with no warmth, it was a miracle he was still standing. Cough cough cough. Trin Bang Hui coughed, his face pale as paper. He was over 40, his body past its prime. A whole night in the rain was like being washed under a tap. His vision blurred, his body heavy, his head about to split. Master? Li Feng called again. Trin Bang Hui forced himself to respond. What should we do now? Should we build another shelter? Li Feng's voice cracked, his throat torn with pain. Of course we must, we cannot just give up. Trin Bang Hui's voice was faint as a mosquito, raspy as sandpaper. Master, your voice. Li Feng rushed forward, seeing his pale face and cracked lips, he knew. He put his shaking hand on his master's forehead, felt burning heat, and exclaimed, Master, you have a fever. It is fine, we must get the reward, one day you will still marry a wife. Trin Bang Hui forced a broken smile. Coming from the mainland, never knowing the sea or the tide, they could not predict it. Master, let us leave, you are ill. Li Feng held him, pleading. No, I have delayed you. Trin Bang Hui forced his mind clear, gritted his teeth. You followed me as a ranger, I could not even buy you a house. Cough cough cough. Master, do not say more, I chose this. Li Feng shook his head, pulling out the satellite phone. He was an orphan, raised by his master. The villagers said his master had also been an orphan at 18. Their village lived by the mountain, trees were all cut for firewood, even fires had stripped the land bare. 1 year heavy rain brought a flood, the village was swept away, only a few hunters in the mountain survived. His master was among them, and Li Feng himself had survived clinging to a rock marked with a muddy handprint, likely his kin's. His master said he found him by the cry, and raised him since, never marrying, working as a ranger. Buzz buzz buzz. Before the satellite phone could call, a helicopter's blades thundered above. The staff had already noticed their situation and sent rescue without waiting. Master, the helicopter is here, we are saved. Li Feng shouted excitedly. Yet in his heart, he was unwilling, one mistake forcing them to quit, he could not accept it. Shut up. Trin Bang Hui snapped, though his voice was no louder than a mosquito. Li Feng shrugged and kept quiet. The air above was filled with gunfire. 10 shark points, reward for Master Trin. Compared to Duong Chang last night, truly bitter irony. Only the poor come here, only they can endure. A reward can change a life, but this team fell to the tide. This is the merciless face of the wild, caution is needed. Wilderness survival 365 days, the 6th team was eliminated, only 94 teams remained. Chapter 35, The Maiden's Longing. So Phong, can seawater be used to make salt? Van Han suddenly recalled a question. She said worriedly, if we go too long without eating salt, our bodies will not endure. This was knowledge she had learned at school, lacking salt causes weakness, and long absence of salt could lead to illness. Salt can be made, but there is no need to rush now. So Phong looked at the worried girl, comforting her. Having salt now is useless, we first need prey, then think about salt. Many things are lacking, one could say everything is missing. At this stage priorities must be set, otherwise survival without planning would crush morale. Alright then. Van Han stuck out her tongue shyly, scratching her head, feeling she worried too much. Oh. The water is boiling. Van Han hurriedly lifted the iron pot from the wooden rack, opening the lid to let the steam escape. As she sat down, she saw So Fong's bare feet covered in mud. Van Han bit her lip, lowering her head to look at her waterproof shoes, a sense of unease rising within her. He noticed her expression, realizing she felt unfair that she wore shoes while he was barefoot. So Phong, do your feet not hurt? She asked gloomily. Those used to wearing shoes would find it painful to suddenly go barefoot on rough terrain. Silly girl, what nonsense are you saying? So Phong rolled his eyes and said angrily, did you fly yesterday? Did you not also walk like me? At first his soles did hurt, but he got used to it, and less stepping on sharp stones he no longer felt pain. But. Van Han pouted, unable to finish. So Phong cut her off, pointing to the rope in her hand. Did you not learn from the old matron how to weave shoes? Make me a pair of rope sandals. Van Han, always diligent, had learned many things from elders. All right, leave it to me. Her eyes lit up, brushing away her sadness. Without caring about dirt, she lifted his foot and measured it with the rope. Her affection was pure. Once she felt it was right, she gave her all. Van Han, after so many years you were still so hard-working. So Phong bent his head to braid the rope, saying, when we were little, during Spring Festival, we got fewer candies, and you went to ask the old matron for more. You also lacked a candy. Van Han's face reddened. She muttered shyly, that was just childish ignorance. But I remember you gave your candy to me. So Phong smiled warmly. Later, I asked the old matron. She said you only asked for one candy. But did you not once say you wanted two? I ate it before. Van Han's face turned crimson, raising her head and exclaiming, So Phong, do not speak of this again. All right, I will not. So Phong shrugged, his mouth curving into a mischievous grin. In truth, he had never asked the old matron, so it was clear she had given hers to him. Their childhood story revealed, even listeners would feel envious. The little girl had been kind to So Phong since childhood, no wonder he secretly protected her. Silence lingered for half an hour. Finally she frowned, hesitated, then asked, So Phong, that night, was it you who put candy under my pillow? Yes. So Phong froze, but nodded to admit. NK books. Then why did you not admit it when I asked before? Van Han narrowed her eyes. Cough, I feared you would give it back. He coughed shyly, not daring to be clear. When little, she had given him her candy, then secretly watched others eat, especially chocolate, which she did not have. Van Han's face flushed. She had guessed but never confirmed. She still kept that chocolate in a small box, never eating it. Now she finally knew it was from him. She quickly changed the subject, handing him the sandal she had made. Here, try if it fits. It fits. So Phong tried it on, it was just right. It seems perfect. Van Han nodded in satisfaction, then began weaving the other, her movements now more skillful. Chapter 36, Total Extermination. All right, let's try this one. Van Han handed another shoe to So Phong. Drink some water first. So Phong took the shoe, put it on, tied the lace around his ankle. He gave a thumbs up to the girl drinking water. Your craftsmanship is still so good. He. Van Han smiled shyly, past the iron pot. You drink some water too. Shall we explore now? Van Han looked toward the nearby forest. Yes, better while it is not too hot. So Phong looked up at the sun. The sun made the mist rise, making the forest stuffy. I will get the hats. Van Han returned to the shelter, took 2 hats made from torn pants, each wore one. Stay close behind me. So Phong slung the rope over his shoulder, carried the hatchet and military shovel to clear the way. The two began scouting around the camp, searching for food. The rain last night made the forest wet, drops of water fell when touching leaves. Tisk. So Phong frowned, his body soaked. Luckily the combat pants kept his underwear dry. She liked the makeshift hat he made, keeping their hair dry. Mugwort leaves? Did we eat this when we were kids? Van Han asked. Yes, same plant, we can take some more. So Phong whispered. Mugwort was a common wild vegetable used in many dishes. Cut a bundle to bring back. So Phong stopped her, chopped a patch of mugwort with the hatchet, tied with rope. Only pick the young leaves, no need for old ones. Van Han said. Mugwort can repel mosquitoes, burn it on fire to drive them away. So Phong explained. Ah? It has that use too? Van Han asked in surprise. Yes, leave it here, we will collect later. So Phong put the bundle down, marked the trees. They continued scouting, sometimes collecting wild greens, leaving signs. Oh! Here is a meadow. So Phong was surprised, a clearing about 200 or 300 square meters, good for a camp. So Phong, look over there. Van Han grabbed his sleeve, pointed, is that a rabbit? A rabbit? He got excited, looked where she pointed, indeed a rabbit, size of 2 hands, not fat. But to him, as long as it was a rabbit, he thought of eating. So Phong, what now? Van Han nudged him, eyes full of longing. She wanted rabbit meat for a long time. Do not move, let me watch more. So Phong calmed her, carefully watched the meadow, found several burrows. He realized this was rabbit habitat, at least a dozen here. A treasure spot. He murmured, catching rabbits would solve food for days. Oh no, it ran. Van Han cried, looking drained. Haze. So Phong looked at her calmly, sighed. What is it? The girl panicked, I did not scare it. It is fine, I know, not your fault. He smiled, patted her head. He thought of her appetite, if saving, 1 rabbit was enough, if indulging, 3 were needed. He felt this meadow would be emptied soon. Then why stare at me, you scared me. Van Han pouted. I was thinking how to catch it. He diverted. Really? How? She asked. This rope can be useful. He took the rope, made a loop. You want to make a trap? Chapter 37, Rope Snare. HM? Speak then. Yun Han frowned slightly. If I set a trap right at the den entrance, would you still go out? Su Feng asked suggestively. Of course not, I am not a pig. Yun Han rolled her eyes. But rabbits will come out. Su Feng spread his hands. Wait, really? Yun Han froze, then quickly realized. You mean placing the trap at the hole, so the rabbit walks in? You got it? Su Feng smiled and picked up the rope to make a snare. Yes, I see, just block the hole, wait for the rabbit to rush in, no bait needed. Yun Han nodded in sudden clarity. Now we must seal some entrances. Su Feng ordered. You mean the rabbit with 3 burrows? Yun Han, being studious, knew their habits. Yes, rabbits dig well, the tunnels crisscross, we have limited rope, so only a few entrances can be trapped. Su Feng said quietly. I will fetch stones. Yun Han cried eagerly. If the trap worked, she could eat rabbit meat, maybe more than 1. No need to haul stones, just collapse the holes with the shovel. Su Feng smiled and handed her the tool. He walked to the den, rope in hand, observing before choosing the busiest hole. Soon, a man-sized hole was reduced to hand-sized. Su Feng, this hole is too small, will the rabbit come? Yun Han squatted, asking. It will, once the other exits are sealed. Su Feng said firmly. He narrowed the hole so the rabbit's head would enter first, the rope set to tighten as its body pushed through. Which ones do I collapse? Yun Han asked blankly. Pick the ones with fewest tracks. Su Feng instructed. Okay. She began working with the shovel. Books. Now fix the rope post. Su Feng looked around, lifted a big stone, tied the rope to it. He gave up on wood stakes, fearing noise might scare the rabbits. After a dozen minutes, they sealed 10 holes. Ha ha! Some old entrances were hidden under grass, making them hard to find. Drink some water. Su Feng handed the iron pot, their only vessel. Drink more, you sweated a lot. If water runs out, we return to camp. He advised. In the forest heat, sweat poured several times more than usual. Back so soon? Yun Han wanted to gather more water before returning. Yes, rabbits are cautious now, they need time before emerging. Su Feng understood her, she just wanted to wait until catching one. Then I will drink a few more sips. Yun Han smiled shyly and drank deeply. Gurgle gurgle. Suddenly her stomach growled, leaving her stiff. Even water makes noise. Su Feng laughed, patting her head. Let's gather wild greens and head back. He tied greens into a bundle, hid it behind him. Teasing had to be timed, now with no food, and her appetite large, jokes about hunger would only shame her, since she ate more than half last night. Let's check that way. Su Feng led her on. He sought bamboo, for strength and tools. Without bamboo, substitutes had to be made. They searched half an hour, water nearly gone, then turned back. But no bamboo was found. Seems this side has nothing else. Su Feng sighed, hoping another side would be better. At least they found greens and rabbit burrows. Urgency pressed him, they must store enough food before winter, or survival would be hard. All right. Yun Han's eyes glimmered with hope. Chapter 38, Inconsiderate Planning. Huff huff. Van Han panted, her steps heavy, teeth pressing her lip, forcing herself to keep up with Su Feng. She carried a small iron pot with some water, a bundle of wild greens on her back, many of them unknown to her. The short rest earlier was not enough, and she already felt exhausted, her lips parched, her stomach hungry, her head spinning. She knew it was the sweat draining her, like when she once marched in military training at school. Huff huff. She tried to steady her breath, her blurred eyes fixed on the figure ahead, Su Feng carrying an even larger bundle, watching the path and staying alert. She wiped the sweat on her brow, not letting it blur her vision, knowing that in the wild, a wound in this heat could fester within a day. Van Han, rest for a while. Su Feng heard her labored breath, stopped, and urged gently. Drink some water, then you will have strength. No need, we just rested, let us wait until the meadow. Van Han shook her head stubbornly. Listen to me, sit down for a moment. He could tell she was at her limit. The rain last night had left the path muddy, harder than a normal half-day's march. I can still go on. She insisted, though she knew that resting made her want to rest even more, a struggle within her. He looked at her pale face, sweat dripping, even her collarbone hollow pooled with sweat, showing how much she was drained. She knew it too, her body losing too much water and energy. Cough cough. She tried to resist but, fearing to spill the water, finally let him press her to drink. She worried fainting would trouble him further, so she finished it all. Do not worry, we need not rush back, as long as we return before nightfall. Su Feng sat beside her, his voice low. And perhaps, by waiting, a rabbit may be in our trap. She nodded lightly, taking off her hat, her black hair wet with sweat. Next time, after rain, we should not go so far. He looked up at the glaring sun, thinking how inexperience, and not minding her strength, had led to this. We must make containers to store water. She thought of the shortage, knowing storage would solve much. We will find a way later. He agreed softly, reminding himself not to rely only on book knowledge, but real conditions too. Buzz buzz. She grumbled, slapping at the swarming mosquitoes, countless around them. He snapped a branch, helping fan them away, deciding to prepare insect repellents once back. Last night the mosquitoes had kept him awake, buzzing endlessly in his ears. Of course, with rabbit meat we can hold on for a month. His tone was calm. The hardships and fatigue could weaken the spirit, but only if one allowed it. Heat, insects, and unchanging forest were tests of will. We have not caught a rabbit yet. She smiled, his optimism contagious. If we catch one, how should we cook it? He smiled, fanning mosquitoes with his branch. I think we should make soup, that way we can eat more. She smiled with hope in her eyes. Then let us go, see if the trap caught anything. He encouraged. Yes. She held his hand, standing, leaving her weariness behind. Chapter 39, Horror Mixed with Joy. So Phong pulled the young girl up, then placed the wild greens from Van Haan's hands onto the ground. Most of these were used to build the canopy shelter, things he secretly collected without showing to the cameras. The effect of the canopy was still uncertain, but if it worked well, later in the city it could even become a business. I can still go on, Van Haan said weakly, her tone not very natural. Wild plants had strong vitality, especially in places with abundant water. Once a path was cleared it would be overgrown again in just a few days. This time So Phong deliberately slowed his pace so the girl could keep up. When going it had taken half an hour, but returning to the meadow now took nearly an hour. Huff huff, finally we reached the meadow. Then rest a while, So Phong whispered. His dark eyes scanned the grassland, but he did not see any rabbit struggling. Did you catch a rabbit? Van Haan forced herself to ask, eyes shining with hope. So Phong pressed his lips and turned away, unable to see her disappointment. So Phong. Van Haan's trembling voice sounded. He unwillingly turned back, seeing her staring ahead, body trembling. Her small hand poked his side, frightened. Look, is that a wolf or a dog? Wolf? His body jolted, he turned quickly, just in time to see an animal head appear at the meadow's edge. Just emerging? How is that possible? He focused and exclaimed, why is there a red wolf here? He was confused, this was an island, how could a land species appear? He gripped the engineer's shovel and hatchet, pulling the girl behind him, eyes sharp scanning around for hidden red wolves. Red wolf? Van Haan's eyes widened, her small hand covered her mouth, fearfully staring toward the edge. Often watching Animal World channels, she knew red wolves, pack dwellers led by a strong and cunning leader. So Phong, what do we do now? Van Haan clung close, eyes darting nervously, afraid of a lurking pack. Do not worry, I am here. So Phong reassured, now they could only observe. Perhaps startled, the red wolf watched them, then slowly backed into the woods. It left. Van Haan pointed toward the forest, whispered, will it call companions? It is fine, we are safe. So Phong looked around, then breath relief, that was a lone red wolf, not a pack. A lone wolf? She was stunned, then calmed, one wolf would not attack two humans. Yes, it was thin and weak, without a pack it could barely survive. He said gently. But in truth, if there was one, then somewhere on the island a pack surely existed. So that is it. Van Haan nodded half understanding, then frowned, why is there a red wolf here? Not clear. He shook his head, recalling online articles, Earth was vast, an island might have such land species. He shrugged, seems we have rivals now. Ah. She gaped. This meadow is likely its hunting ground. He smiled bitterly. In the wild they were not the only predators, at least they had not met bears yet, otherwise they would not be chatting calmly. All right. He gripped the hatchet, eyes wary scanning. Only the last one left. Van Haan's mood was low, sometimes high hope brought greater disappointment. Wait. So Phong stopped her, eyes fixed on the ruined trap. Seems there is movement. He crept closer, noticing a rope end tied around a rabbit in the burrow. Huff huff. He took a deep breath, squatted, pulled the rope hard, and soon dragged out a gray rabbit. Ah, a rabbit, we got a rabbit. Van Han cheered, eyes sparkling at the suffocated animal, feeling overjoyed. Looks like it panicked back into the trap, strangling itself. So Phong analyzed like a detective. We have meat now. She nodded happily. Chapter 40, Survival is extremely difficult. At this moment Zhao Lei and Zhao Loi were hiding in the bushes hunting. Their current appearance was so strange that acquaintances would not recognize them. People might even suspect their race, for their yellow skin had been smeared black with mud. Bang! Zhao Loi slapped his back angrily. These mosquitoes are unbearable. Since landing yesterday, they had been tormented by mosquitoes without respite. Before, they relied on technology or certain plants to repel them, but now they had to hunt while searching for useful plants. Your back is not fully covered with mud, right? Zhao Lei circled behind his brother, seeing a patch exposed. Having found no familiar plants, they used the method taught by Sun Bing. I sweat so much, the mosquitoes will bite me anyway. Zhao Loi sighed, smearing mud on his back. These mosquitoes must have strong tastes. Zhao Lei rubbed his chin. After landing, they chose a high place with water, spent a day building a simple shelter, and endured a rainy night with mosquito bites. Animals here are hard to find, and we have no bows or arrows. Zhao Lei sighed at the wooden stick in his hand. Do not be discouraged, focus on now. Zhao Loi whispered to remind him. He remembered in the helicopter mess hall, they needed to perform well to attract rewards from viewers. Even if no grand prize, the tips could comfort them. Cough, I know. Zhao Lei glanced at the drone camera, forcing a stiff smile. Look, pray. Zhao Loi lowered his voice suddenly. Where? Zhao Lei widened his eyes. Behind that tree, circle around, do not let it escape. Zhao Loi pointed. Got it. Zhao Lei also saw the prey, sneaking around. Go. Seeing his brother in position, Zhao Loi pounced. He missed, shouting nervously. Not good, it jumped down, block it. Watch me, it will not escape. Zhao Lei swung his stick confidently. Boom! Ha ha ha! Zhao Lei laughed loudly, lifting the prey by its tail. Wow, such a big lizard. Zhao Loi took it, seeing its hand-long body and white fingers. Looks like our start is good, by the second day we have food. Zhao Lei said excitedly. Of course, we will do better and better. Zhao Loi looked at the lizard proudly into the lens. I think among so many challengers, few could catch prey on the second day. Yes, I think so too, maybe those like Suafong have already been eliminated. Zhao Lei compared again. Likely, the helicopter this morning must have taken someone out. Zhao Loi agreed. He thought even they, with rich survival experience, found it hard, not to mention Suafong, Yunhan, and the Lu sisters. Finally meat to eat. Zhao Loi licked his lips, eyes shining with hunger. He once saw a survival show where a man lived 20 days on lizards, so he decided to catch more to make dried meat. Clearly, he and Zhao Lei had the same thought. Yes. Zhao Lei echoed. In truth, the broadcasts were mostly comic, only driven by the platform to pull viewers, teaching many how to play alone. Haha, these brothers are hilarious. Happy with NK one lizard? Books. Next door the little lowly ate a snake and now has a rabbit. That Zhao Lei is disgusting, always dragging Suafong in. Turns out the little NK lowly is books. Very lucky.